Jeff Gordon, the Rainbow Warrior, Wonder Boy, the clean-cut protagonist of NASCAR for many, who weren't Earnhardt fans at least. It's no exaggeration to say that Jeff Gordon didn't just bring NASCAR into the mainstream, but he also redefined the image of what a NASCAR driver was for everybody. Also, I'm wearing this to prove that I'm a Jeff Gordon fan and not just some hater making a video, but it is really hot in here, so I'm definitely taking this off. But with great respect and admiration from many, also comes great resentment from others. Gordon knew that for every new fan he was bringing into the sport on his side, he would gain a hater from the old fan base. As a result, Gordon was very reserved in the limelight for the first half of his career. He came to the track, more often than not kicked the competition's butt, did whatever interviews were required of him, and then went straight back to his motorhome. Even in the rare instances where Gordon was involved in drama with other drivers like Dale Jarrett or Rusty Wallace, Gordon usually took the pacifistic route. For newer fans, his personality was similar to the modern-day Chase Elliott or Kyle Larson. Maybe it's just because the guys Gordon raced with back in the 90s were all a foot taller than him and could have easily kicked his butt, but it was also likely due to Jeff not wanting any more controversy around him than he already had. But in the second half of Gordon's career, a notable shift began to happen. After Gordon won his fourth and final Cup Series championship in 2001, an influx of new drivers came through the series while many of the veterans Jeff Gordon started racing against saw their way out. In the span of only a few seasons, Jeff went from Wonder Boy to the old guard. And in the process, NASCAR fans saw something that they had never seen before: Jeff Gordon struggle. While 2002 through 2004 were still great seasons by most driver standards, by Gordon standards, it was a considerable regression from the success he was used to. Gone were the golden days of double-digit victories. Now Gordon would only average about 3 to 4 victories a season. Was it the departure of Ray Evernham? A nasty public divorce? An exceptionally talented new generation of young car drivers? Gordon losing his edge? Or maybe a combination of all of those things? Nobody can say for sure, but after 2005 and 2006, it seemed like Gordon was beginning to enter the twilight of his career. And maybe this, combined with the fact that Gordon was now the old man on campus, led to something that few saw coming: Jeff Gordon's quote-unquote villain arc. Now, ironically, Jeff Gordon was a lot more popular towards the end of his career than he was in the 90s during his quiet pacifist arc, so calling it a villain arc may be a tad bit of an exaggeration, but this was definitely a much different Jeff Gordon from what we had come to know. In 2006, Jeff Gordon initiated a post-race altercation with Matt Kenseth for maybe the first time in his 15-year-long career to this point, after Kenseth unintentionally spun Gordon out in the closing laps at Bristol. But Gordon wasn't satisfied with just a mere shove after the race, as only a few months later Gordon would retaliate in a much bigger way, dumping Matt Kenseth for the win at Chicagoland while still being on probation for the fight at Bristol. Gordon swore up and down in his interview that the contact wasn't intentional, but most of NASCAR Nation wasn't convinced. Eventually, this rivalry, like many others, fizzled out. But it did mark the first time ever that Jeff Gordon went after another driver. Following a resurgence in 2007, where Jeff Gordon won 6 races and contended for a 5th championship, 2008 through 2010 would ultimately be rock bottom for his career, winning only a single race across all 3 of those seasons. He still had enough speed to lead laps and finish well in the points, but the old 24 just wasn't closing the bag like he used to. Part of it was likely due to Gordon sustaining a heavy back injury at Las Vegas in the spring race of 2008, which, fittingly enough, also involved Matt Kenseth. Gordon would later go on record to say that this crash is what hindered him the most in his final few seasons. Frustration even boiled to the point where Gordon was uncharacteristically beefing with his own teammate Jimmy Johnson. The two had some incidental contact in Texas that year and later Talladega, and instead of just letting it go like he usually does, Jeff was quick to fire some strong remarks Jimmy's way.
4 times a little upset.
Speaking of the 48, Jimmy Johnson, what happened when you two got together earlier in the race?
I don't know. You know, he was real loose, and I slid up in front of him a little bit, and maybe that was it, and he ran in the back of me, you know, for no reason. The 48 is testing my patience, I can tell you that. It takes a lot to make me mad, and I'm pissed right now. I mean, you know, when a car's going that much faster, I don't know what it is with me and him right now, but, you know, whatever.
And late in the 2010 season, when Gordon was at his absolute lowest, he was dealt one final blow by Jeff Burton at Texas. Gordon was already running a very poor race and was likely seeing the last of his championship hopes fade away for the season, when Jeff Burton inexplicably ran him over under the yellow flag. Apparently, Burton didn't know the yellow had just come out and unintentionally hooked bumpers with the 24, sending him straight into the wall. While Burton went to express his regret for the accident, Jeff Gordon understandably wasn't in a talking mood. This was actually the only time that Jeff ever fought with an older driver from his generation rather than the new generation. But Burton accepted the blame in his post-race interview, and the beef was squashed relatively quickly. After years of struggles, Gordon would have another great comeback season in 2011, but once again, it appeared to be short-lived. Gordon certainly wasn't bad in 2012, he had the same number of top 10s as the previous season with 18, and still led a respectable 500 laps, but 2012 proved to be a season full of frustrations for Gordon, as there was not one, not two, but nearly half a dozen race wins that slipped from his grasp that year. Gordon was running far better than he had in years, but sheer bad luck was the only thing keeping him from victory lane most weeks. Ironically, the two races he did win this season at Pocono and Homestead were under some of the luckiest circumstances possible, thanks to rain and fuel mileage. But every time speed was on Gordon's side, fortune was not. And the one who set the tone for this trend was none other than Clint Bowyer. With only 2 laps to go at Martinsville in the spring, Jeff Gordon had just completed the pass on teammate Jimmy Johnson, racing for Hendrick's 200th victory in the Cup Series. In what looked to be a breakthrough win for Gordon quickly turned sour, as David Rudiman inexplicably refused to pit in the closing laps, instead choosing to break down the front stretch, bringing out the caution flag. In an overtime restart that saw Gordon and Johnson sitting on old tires, absolute chaos ensued, as it would be Clint Bowyer with the kamikaze move of the century going into turn 1 that cleared Gordon out. And for me, a Jeff Gordon fan, it was quite literally the worst day of my 14-year-old life. After the race, Gordon was his usual subdued self, disappointed in the results but didn't pass any of the blame off to Clint. However, when NASCAR returned to Martinsville in the fall, trouble brewed once more. With only a handful of laps to go, Bowyer would once again make contact with Gordon, costing him an important top 5 finish. Once again, Jeff Gordon is forgiving of Clint in his post-race interview, but beneath his calm exterior, his blood must have been boiling, because only a few weeks later in Phoenix, Clint delivered strike 3.
Racing with Clint Bowyer in the 15. There's that contact on the left rear. A good day gone bad, again, for Jeff Gordon in this chase.
No caution. Where is he? I'm getting his ass.
He's turning Clint Bowyer into the wall, collecting Joey Logano. Caution flag is out. Well, they said they were going to let him have at it. That's having at it right there. That's a year's worth of frustration. Oh, conflict. The Cruiser in it.
In what is possibly the most controversial moment of Jeff Gordon's career, Gordon would drive Clint Bowyer into the fence, costing Clint a shot at the 2012 championship in the process. But Clint had screwed with Gordon all season long, and this was the straw that finally broke the camel's back. Undoubtedly, this was out of character for Jeff Gordon, but perhaps this needed to be done to show that he was done taking crap from the newer generation. And it appeared that most heeded this warning. Well, all except for one. And that was the one who benefited the most from Clint Bowyer's scuffle, Brad Keselowski. As the guy who took home the 2012 championship in the aftermath of the brawl, Keselowski had nothing to lose going forward as an established NASCAR champion. And so, when NASCAR rolled out their controversial new playoff system in 2014 that rewarded winning above all else, few were more aggressive than Brad. Throughout all of 2014, it looked like Brad and Jeff were the two drivers to beat, clicking off a combined 10 victories. And so, in the heat of the round of 8 when NASCAR returned to Texas Motor Speedway, the same place where Gordon had feuded with Burton only a few years earlier, the two finally locked horns in a green-white checkered finish.
Contact Gordon and Keselowski. Jeff Gordon may have a flat tire. Yeah, he does. Gordon spinning, turn 4.
Looking back at it now, it's hard to believe that the soft-spoken pacifist Jeff Gordon of the 90s would ultimately be the source of NASCAR's two most memorable modern-day melees. By any other driver's standards, only having 4 fights across a career of nearly 25 years doesn't seem that out of the ordinary. But it's more the fact that all 4 of these were contained in the stretch of only 8 years. And unlike most drivers who mellow out with age, Jeff Gordon seemed to do the opposite. He got more feisty the older he got. But at the same time, most drivers also have the opposite career trajectory of Jeff Gordon. Most drivers struggle as rookies, win only a few times in the first half of their careers, and usually hit their peaks around the age of 40. Jeff Gordon was the opposite. He stepped into winning equipment as a rookie, racked up most of his wins against the veterans of the sport, but began to wane in the later years of his career. Affected by injury, car changes, or any other number of things, Jeff knew by the 2010s that wins didn't come easily anymore. And maybe that's the ultimate reason why we saw Jeff Gordon turn into the grumpy old man at the end of his career. He knew time was running out. He knew these shots at wins were his last. And to top it all off, these dang kids just didn't race with the same respect that Jeff's generation did. From Jeff's rookie season in 1992 to his last in 2015, NASCAR etiquette had changed to the point where it was no longer recognizable. Arguably, nobody saw a bigger change in the way drivers raced than Gordon did. And that itself, ultimately, is what changed Jeff Gordon. But what do you think? Why did Jeff Gordon suddenly turn into a fighter at the end of his career? Let me know in the comments down below. But don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and check out dailydownforce.com for more awesome NASCAR content.